Hi everyone! Today I am making some Christmas cards and I want something kind of simple but that still says me because I'm making them for family and friends, and so I want it to look like something that I would make but also be fast. So I've come up with a card using the Joyful Holiday. Now I loved this set when I first saw it. It's so simple. You might look at it and think that there's not much here because it's just two holly images, but I think that the look of these, the swirl, I just imagined very elegant cards with this. And so actually it was on my first holiday order. This is retiring in just 3 weeks. On July 4th will be the last day, or if that's the day of the new catalog, so the 3rd, is the last day you can get it. And it's a nice little simple stamp set. It's not very expensive, and it's actually, I think, quite elegant looking. So I decided to make some cards with that, and they're very simple, using some watercolor because I love watercolor. So we're going to do kind of a loose watercolor, and if that's not your cup of tea, I also did a version where I colored within the lines. So you've got you know, two different versions of the same. Now this is almost exactly out of the catalog. They used some blues and they didn't watercolor, but I wanted to make it more me, so I used all greens and reds, and I did some watercolor. And you can make it yourself too by however you want to make it. Choose some colors that are more to your liking. I really love real red and garden green as my Christmas greens and reds, so that's what I've used. And I've found papers that have a garden green background without much going on. So I found this paper here is a garden green paper that has on one side, it's from the Poinsettia Place Designer Series paper, and the back of it has these pretty little poinsettias on it, which are pretty, but I wanted something more simple, so I'm going to use the back. Sometimes that's hard to do. There are other poinsettia plants that are larger in some other papers, and I cut those up. So this one, I think these flowers are a little too small for me to cut out, and so I really think that this background here is lovely. So I'm going to use this paper on some, and then another paper that has some really great garden greens is the Twal Tidings. And I hardly have any of that left. So that one has on one side garden green and the other side real red on a very nice, very vanilla base. So it's perfect for my watercolor card stock because that has kind of a vanilla tinge to it anyway. And then you get these little patterns as well. So you've got a nice garden green stripe, and then the buffalo check or gingham. I think it's more gingham. And then on one side's red and the other side is garden green. And I decided to make them all garden green. I think the red might be pretty too, but I was really going for the holly green background with just pops of red. Now, like I said, I'm going to mass produce these, so I'm going to use my Stamparatus. And I have to admit, I don't use it very often because I usually make 2 of a card. And so I don't need to mass produce all that often. Sometimes I use the Stamparatus for techniques, which is fun, but today I'm using it, it's an old stamp there. Today I'm using it for, in case that's distracting, mass producing, and that is a nice thing about this. You know these stamps are going to line up exactly where you want them every time. So I've kind of made myself a stack here of watercolor paper, and I'm going to put one down. Now, watercolor paper, I should show you, it's kind of bumpy. And one side has a smoother texture than the other. I like to use the bumpier side and just kind of give it a little once over with your Stampin' Buddy, or Embossing Buddy, sorry. It's a little packet of, it's kind of like chalk or something in there, I don't know. But it helps remove static so you don't end up with little bits of embossing powder in places that you don't necessarily want it. Okay, so I am going to ink up my images. I've chosen just the 2 outline holly images, and I'm going to ink them up with the Versamark. That's like a sticky stamp pad. Okay, and then I'm going to use my embossing powder, and I've decided to go with silver. Gold is a nice option as well. Now I have this little tray that Stampin' Up! Used to sell. I wish they still did, because it is quite nice. But this enables me to just kind of use embossing powder that I've already poured out kind of over and over again. But you can do this onto a sheet of scrap paper too. Give it a little flick. I don't think I have any flyaways. I think I missed an area right there by the holly. Okay. Now I'm going to heat that up. Now this makes kind of a lot of noise, so I usually, when I do a video and I emboss, I kind of speed through it because I don't want you to have to hear like a buzzing hairdryer noise as I'm embossing. So I'm going to speed this part up. Okay, so I've got it all embossed, and now I think I missed a little tiny corner. There we go, glad I caught that. Okay, so now I'm going to use my water painters to give it the color, and I started to make my samples with these, which are the older version of the water painters. The new ones are a little different, but they work the same, so I'm just going to keep using these. The new ones come with a third size. Also, it comes with 2 smaller sizes, but then it also comes with this nice larger wash brush, which I really like. Anyway, these are filled with water and ready to go, so I'm going to go with these. Now, when I use my water painters, or aqua painters, these are the older ones, I like to have my Stampin' Scrub next to me just because it's so easy to clean my brush if I want to, or squeeze water and not get so much water on this paper. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to start with the garden green. Okay, so this one already has garden green on it. I'm going to get my brush wet. Now what I like to do is just get a little bit of color on there, and then I'm just going to do kind of a wash. I'm going to start in a holly, but then I'm going to just kind of go messy and go outside of that holly, and I'm going to avoid the berries. So I've kind of gotten that one done. I'm going to move on to this one. And I like to start in a leaf just because in case there's more ink on my brush than I thought, then it's not a problem. Because I want it to get lighter away from the image. Okay. Now I'm going to get my brush wet again and just kind of feather out these edges a little more. In case I have some that are very harsh. I think these are all pretty soft. Okay, I'm going to give that a second to dry, and you can heat set it too if you want it to dry faster, but it doesn't have to be completely dry. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick up a lot of ink on my water painter, and I'm going to try to go within the leaf. Now if some comes out of the leaf, that's okay. Don't worry about it. We're going for a loose watercolor anyway, and then that silver that we embossed is still going to shine through. But we're just going to go back over and add more color right on those leaves. And if you want it to bleed out past, go right ahead. Like, I think I went a little too light maybe on some of the background here, so I'm going to let it bleed out a little more and add a little more color. So I think I went too light. And I think that's a personal preference thing. You can decide, do you want, how messy do you want to be, how dark. Okay. And because I made the background darker over here, I'm going to go back over these just to make sure they're very dark and they stand out from the background. Okay, now I'm going to grab my real red and I'm going to do the berries. And I decided not to go past the lines on the berries. You can decide what you think you want to do. Maybe you want to do a messy background of red also. I decided I liked the berries being just little circles. Now we wanted to avoid the berries because green and red mixed together make brown or black. In fact, when you're trying to make a black, you kind of mix green and red together. And so I wanted to avoid that. There we go. Now I'm not bothering to clean between. You can use one brush for all colors, you just have to clean it between, but I have to make a whole bunch of these, so I'm not cleaning between. So there I got my background, and I'll set that aside to dry, and then I need to find a scrap piece of watercolor paper to do my sentiment, and I think this is big enough. Where's my punch? Here it is. I'm going to make sure, oops, wrong side. Yes, that's big enough. I just got to make sure I center my sentiment really well. Okay, so now I'm going to do my sentiment, and I chose one of the ones from the stamp set. It says, "A joyful Christmas to you." There's also, "May your season be merry and bright." That's really nice. I forgot to do my embossing buddy. That's that little chalk pad. And as you can see, because of the whole static-iness of paper and also the bumpiness of the watercolor paper, see, I've got my little flyaways that don't want to go away. See? They're just kind of static there. Had I used my embossing buddy, I think I would have gotten a cleaner image, although it's all up here in the corner, so I think I'm okay. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and emboss it and see what it looks like. I think it's okay. I'm grabbing a copy of my annual catalog because I can't remember the names of these two punches I'm using. So, okay, we are using the Label Me Fancy punch and then a background of Everyday Label punch. I love having punches. I buy every single one that comes out. It's just so nice to be able to grab a punch off the, I have a little punch wall, and have it ready to go. So I do love my punches. Alright, so now you kind of line that up. Now this one comes with a little hole that you can use for punching a hole in your tag, but I need it just plain. And then the everyday label punch, I just need a scrap of garden green. Let's see what I got here in my scrap file. This one's big enough. Yep, I can get 2 out of this one. Okay. All right, now I love that Stampin' Up! Has given us a lot of adhesive options, and these little mini dimensionals are perfect because they're small enough that I can do a little row on the top and another little row on the bottom, and the ribbon will slide right in between. So I'm going to bring this over. Now I want to just go ahead and stick this down because then I don't have to worry about holding things over. So let me grab my adhesive, which I can't find. Here it is. Go ahead and, oh, I forgot. I wanted to splatter. Okay, before I do that, I'm going to splatter. So to make my splatters, I like to get my water painter, my aqua painter, really wet and pick up some ink, and then I bring it over to the lid from my water painter, and then I just use that, and then I can clean this out with a little Q-tip or tissue or just wipe it on my pad, but usually I make a mess. So alright, so let's put this one aside. Actually, I'll just use my heat tool to be fast. Okay, now we can go ahead and put this down. Okay, and now we're going to find a really pretty red ribbon. I have a few red ribbons. I think this is last year's red ribbon, but I have several. I don't think my family and friends know which one's retired and which one's not. The current one I think is this double stitched satin ribbon. I think this is last year's Christmas. So I'm trying to use some of that up first. Make sure that's not upside down. So I'm going to put the ribbon in between my rows of dimensionals. Isn't that fabulous? And then go ahead and stick it down right in the center. Okay, and that way I can then easily manipulate this. Whereas if I was trying to hold that in place, oh, I ran out of this one. Yay, I mean I did a good job using up my ribbon. Okay, so let's, I don't think I need all of that. Give myself enough to tie a nice bow. I shouldn't have cut it quite so short because my bow is a little on the small side. I kind of liked a really big bow on this one, but that's okay. Alright, now I've got some of this Toile Tidings paper, and how I like to put that on my card. Sometimes I like to leave a little edge around, but this time I went full front of the card, and so I'm going to put down adhesive, making sure to get kind of all the way to the ends. And then I like to stand, when I want it to be, make sure that I get flush to the ends, I kind of stand it up on its end and then hold this in front, and then my fingers kind of act as a guide. So this side I know is lined up, the bottom of the table is lined up, and that way I've got it on there, and I've got a nice front of my card. Now what did I do with my, here it is. And then you can decide, do you want to pop this up on some dimensionals or do you want it to be flat? I've decided I want it to be flat because sometimes watercolor paper curls when you do it. And so I want it to lie nice and flat. And I think dimensionals won't quite hold it still. I'm putting a lot on here because there's some curvature. Okay, see what I mean by it's kind of curving? Put that down. There. Now, another thing I thought of doing, and I didn't do it on all of them, I don't think I have enough. I've used so many of these cute little red rhinestones this Christmas. I don't know that I saved, oops. I don't know that I saved myself enough, but it would be cute to add if you wanted some more shininess. Just take a few of these and add them where the berries are. Then you wouldn't even have to paint the red berries. So I'm going to do one like that just to show you, but I don't think I'm going to do them all like that. But they're just the right size. They're like sliding all over. And then I like to do that at the end because some of the berries got covered with our sentiment and our ribbon, so you're not going to see them, so why waste them? Kind of hard to get off, aren't they? Kind of slipping and sliding a little bit. I don't know that I would have even put one there because it's kind of covered by the ribbon, but it's done. I actually have more rhinestones than I think I do because there are quite a lot on here. Anyway, tell me what you think. Do you like it with the rhinestones or painted? And again, you can do plain if you don't like the messy watercolor look. You can do it just colored perfectly inside the lines and not mess it up. And then if you do it on, like here I did it on a garden green base because I had a few garden green bases just already sitting on my desk from some poinsettia cards I did. And so here I just used it. And then I'll have to go ahead and make myself an inside with some ivory, very vanilla paper. And you can do that. Now, then on the inside of these that are already very vanilla, I like to do that when I'm mass producing because then I can write directly onto this and I can write my greeting. I don't have to add another sheet. And so that's kind of nice for mass producing as well. So there is my Joyful Holly Christmas card. I hope you like it. I think it's really fun. I think the watercoloring outside the lines, as you can see, they're all going to be different. But I think that my friends and family know that I love to watercolor. So this one says, you know, Beth made this. And I think it's really fun. And you can find lots of papers that have a green base. So maybe you've got more of an old olive base. I think holly looks better darker, maybe a shaded spruce if you don't have a lot of garden green. Anyway, I hope that you like this card and this project, and look at your sets. Maybe you've got something else that you can try this messy watercolor look with, because I think it's quite fun and I think it's really pretty. Thanks for watching.